Hey guys, welcome back to Hook with Anime. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Strategy X. New York City Bayville High Night. At a football game, a Caucasian girl with a tall and athletic figure was taking pictures for the school paper. She has long red hair, which she wears freely down her back, and green eyes. She's wearing a form-fitting pale purple shirt with a slight V-neck that shows her navel, tan khakis and brown open-toed sandals. She also has gold bracelets on each of her wrists, and rings on her index fingers and thumbs. As she dropped her camera, a necklace was lowered in front of her, and her eyes widened. It's a heart-shaped diamond necklace with the inside hollowed out on a gold chain. Like it, Jean. The now identified Jean turned around, and saw a spiky blonde-haired boy staring at her. He has blue eyes and 3 whisker marks on each cheek, wearing faded blue jeans, black boots, and a black shirt with a weird green leaf design on it. Konoha's emblem. Naruto. It's great, but it must have. Naruto cut her off with a kiss. No big deal. It's our 1-year anniversary. 1. He said before hearing someone curse. Oh man, my cash. He looked up to see a Caucasian boy with a tall and lean frame. He has clean-cut brown hair and wearing red lens glasses, hiding his eyes. He's wearing a blue sweater over a pale yellow shirt, and tan pants with a brown belt and light brown shoes. He saw the boy stare at a person a seat down from him before noticing a pale hand take a wallet. The boy walked down, and Naruto sighed. I better go help Scott. He said as he walked to Scott, and saw 3 of the football players standing over a small teen boy with light brown hair, jeans with holes in the knees, untied tennis shoes, a white long-sleeve shirt under a dark red short-sleeved one with black spiked bracelets. He sighed before speaking up. Come on, Duncan. You don't want to get in trouble, and get kicked off your gravy train, do you? The one in the middle took off his helmet, showing short blonde hair, and brown eyes. Why are you sticking up for this frog face, Uzumaki? Naruto crossed his arms before speaking up. It's the right thing to do. Duncan snorted before lifting the boy up. I've got a better idea. I'll finish Todd. And then I'll go to you. Scott pulled his glasses down a little, revealing a red glow before Naruto raised his hand. I won't fight you, Duncan. Duncan threw Todd down, and was about to stomp him, until Naruto kicked him back into the other 2. Todd, seeing his chance, hopped away like a frog. The other 2 players ran off after him. Duncan got up, and spat out some mud that got in his mouth. You're going to pay for that, Uzumaki. He got up, and threw a punch at Naruto, who lazily dodged, and the follow-up punch. Naruto kicked his knee, making Duncan fall. Duncan got up and charged at Naruto, who tensed. Naruto. No. Naruto turned, and saw Jean looking at them. Duncan tackled Naruto into Scott, knocking his glasses off, and having red beams shoot out of his eyes, and into a propane tank at the snack bar. Boom. The tank exploded, having people run as part of the stand fell on Naruto, who pushed an unconscious Duncan, and Scott, who closed his eyes out of the way. Naruto. Jean screamed, and raised her hands. Another explosion caused her to fall beside Scott's glasses. She picked them up, and puts them on Scott, who was sitting down, and covering his eyes. Jean. I'm sorry, it was a miss. She interrupted him as she stood up. I know. They heard a noise, and looked to see Naruto push the burning wood off of him with burns on his skin, and tears on his clothes. He groaned as he walked up to them, his burns healing. I don't want to do that again, he said as Jean tackled him in a hug. Later, the paramedics and firemen was tending to the wounded and injured as a 30s Rolls-Royce stopped, and the window rolled down halfway. The car started after a moment, and left. Morning. Xavier's school for the gifted. Naruto was banging on the door to Jean's room. Come on, Jean. We're going to be late, he yelled, and after a second she replied. Just a second. Naruto sighed before pinching the bridge of his nose. You said that an hour ago. He heard her chuckle on the other side. Almost done. Naruto's eyebrow twitched before speaking up. I'm going to blow this door down. The door opened, and a smiling Jean walked out. Come on, we're late. she said, trailing a finger across his jaw. They walked to the stairs, and Jean grabbed her head for a second as a fox ran past them. You okay? He asked as the fox looked to them for a second before dashing into Naruto's room. Yeah, just a headache. He wrapped an arm around her waist, and looked to an open door on the other end of a hall at the end of the stairs. Hey professor, we're going out. They stopped as a man spoke up. Just a moment, you two. They walked in where a bald man with brown eyes in a wheelchair with the wheel spokes in the shape of an X. He's wearing dark slacks, brown sweater under a lighter brown button-up shirt beside a person wearing a cloak. What's up, Charles? Naruto asked as Charles gestured to the other person. I'd like you to meet someone. The person took a step forward as Charles continued. This is Kurt. He arrived late last night. They both waved as Naruto introduced themselves. Hello Kurt, I'm Naruto, and this is Jean. He held out his hand as Kurt hesitated. It's all right Kurt. You're among friends. Charles said as Jean walked beside him, and Kurt shook Naruto's hand showing blue fur, and 3 fingers. Hello. Kurt greeted in a German accent as Naruto smiled. I was just telling Kurt about my school for gifted youngsters. Youngsters whose gifts are not always an asset. Right Naruto? Naruto groaned as he looked to the ceiling. You've heard already. Charles smirked as he laced his fingers. Yes. It's all over the news. I've already talked to Scott. Naruto looked to him. It wasn't my fault. It wouldn't have happened if Jean didn't distract me. She's at fault also. Jean looked at him wide-eyed. You're going to drag your girlfriend down with you? Naruto nodded her before smirking. Yes, because if you didn't distract me, Duncan wouldn't have tackled me into Scott. She glared at him for a moment before walking to him. You're lucky I like you, she said before turning to walk to Kurt. She suddenly jumped when Naruto pinched her ass, and Charles spoke up. Scott, another student, emits a destructive beam from his eyes. Cool, Kurt said, removing his hood showing blue, black hair, and silver eyes. Jean cleared her throat before speaking. So Kurt, any special powers that brought you to us? Kurt disappeared in a cloud of smoke before reappearing on the other side of the room. I'll be helping Kurt settle in. We'll talk more tonight. Naruto nodded before turning around, and saw an African American woman with a tall and curvaceous figure. She has long and wavy white hair, which she wears freely down her back, and blue eyes. She's wearing a white blouse, a long purple skirt with reddish-purple shredded ends, and tan open-toed sandals. She accessorizes with multiple gold and purple bracelets on each of her wrists along with matching gold hop earrings, a gold choker necklace and a single gold anklets. She also wearing a reddish-purple bandana-like headband wrap. Hello Aurora. Change your mind about our date? Naruto asked as Jean elbowed him in his side. I swear you're a hopeless flirt. Aurora smiled before putting her hand on Naruto's shoulder. No Naruto. You're too young for me. Naruto smirked before leaving. Age is just a number, Aurora. Plus I'm older than I look. Jean walked to the door before Naruto stopped her. I've got a surprise for you, he said, bringing her to the garage where a few different cars were in. He walked to a red Infiniti G37 convertible. Her eyes widened as he handed her the keys. Happy anniversary. This also counts as your birthday present too, he said, getting in the passenger seat. Upstairs with Charles, Aurora, and Kurt. Charles was showing Kurt his room with Aurora, who's holding a box. This bedroom is mine, Kurt asked as Charles chuckled. Yes Kurt. That's why your parents sent you to us. They knew you would be happy. Kurt sighed before looking into a mirror on the wall. How can I, when I look like this? Charles reached into his pocket, and got out a watch. Put this on. Kurt puts it on his left wrist, and took the appearance of a normal-looking, light-skinned teenage boy. He still has bluish-black hair with dark cargo pants, red long-sleeve shirt under a brown jacket. This is incredible, Kurt said, looking in the mirror again as Charles rolled up. I'm normal. Aurora smiled before speaking up. Of course you're normal, Kurt. But not because of that watch. Charles nodded, and spoke up after her. Storm is right, Kurt. Normal is who you are. This is disguise. A disguise so you're not persecuted by those that don't understand your gifts. He pressed a button on the watch, and Kurt returned to normal. I understand, Professor, Kurt said before hitting the button again. But nonetheless, you rock. Charles and Aurora left Kurt, who opened the box, and saw a blue-red suit with a yellow belt with a buckle with a black X over a red background. Later, Charles was reading in his study as a portrait lit up, and an alarm went off. He rolled over, and the wall opened, showing large computer with a helmet on it. A picture of the high school came up with red dot on it. So, he's finally stopped hiding, he said before the phone on his wheelchair went off. He pressed a button on it, and answered. Hello, Scott, he greeted as Scott sighed. I hate it when you do that, Professor. Look, Naruto and I ran into a student. Like us. Charles puts the helmet on, and looked to the screen. Yes, Todd Tolansky, he said, bringing his information up. You know him? Scott asked after a second. Cerebro just picked him up, he must be using his powers openly now. Scott sighed again before speaking up. He's not someone I would share a room with. He has the hygiene of a dead pig. Charles typed on Cerebro before speaking up. Scott, you know we don't turn anyone away. He heard Scott talking to someone else before speaking to him. Yeah, I know. You want me to extend an invitation? Charles shook his head before replying. No need, Scott. I'll talk to you later. Kurt in his normal form walked in wearing his new costume. What's this, Professor? Charles smiled, and explained Cerebro was used for finding people with special powers before hitting another button. Storm. After a second, Aurora spoke up. Yes, Professor, she asked as Kurt looked at Cerebro. I was wondering if you could audition someone for me. That night, Todd, in a green costume with a metal stomach and back, hopped over the fence as Storm, wearing a blue costume with the sleeves stopping just under her elbow with yellow ends, and a yellow belt with a cape that's white underneath with an X buckle holding it on, white gloves, and boots. She floated up in the air as storm clouds rolled in as she flew over Todd. Her eyes glowed white as it rained, and lightning came out of her hands, forcing Todd inside. Naruto, now wearing black cargo pants, belt with the X buckle, Kevlar vest under a black short-sleeved trench coat with a hood that's pulled up hiding the top half of his face, walked in with Kurt following after. Todd flew in, and into Kurt, forcing them to circle each other. What are you? A blue plushie? Todd asked as Kurt scoffed. Better that than smelling bad. They took off down the hall as Storm and Charles came in. Yes, it seems that Tolansky does have gifts. He could be one of us, Charles said as Storm and Naruto walked up. Yeah, but I don't think he'll join us. Storm nodded before continuing after Naruto. Yes, sometimes I fear your big heart blinds even you from the truth. Suddenly, Todd and Kurt came up on the second floor, causing Charles to sigh. Enough. This test is over. Everyone turned to Charles, who continued. Todd Tolansky does have the special X gene. He is welcome to join us, if he so desires. Todd scoffed before pointing to Kurt. The only thing I desire is his head on a platter. He jumped over, shot a longer than average tongue at Kurt, and brought them to the floor. Only for Kurt to teleport them both. Well, crap, Naruto said before dashing down the hall. Scott and Jean is still practicing in the danger room. He ran to a wall and pressed a hidden button and revealed an elevator. Going down a few floors, he ran in a silver hallway and saw Scott, now wearing a dark navy blue bodysuit. It has gold platelets with the X logo on both of his shoulders, while a gold X-shaped platelet goes around his chest area. He wears a gold visor in place of his glasses, while small gold platelets protect his knee and shin areas. Matching gold combat boots are worn for shoes with gold gloves worn on both hands. And Jean, now wearing a dark navy blue bodysuit with a cowl that covers her whole body except for her face, hair, and hands. Her suit has a bright green V-shaped triangle on the front and has the X logo on the side of each of her arms, shoulders. She's also wearing a single bangles bracelet on each of her wrists. Kurt and Todd are inside. They ran back in to see Kurt and Todd dodging laser guns in a big circular room. Scott, take care of the guns, Jean, keep them safe from the tentacles. Naruto ordered before making a cross shape with his hands. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, multiple shadow clone technique. Several Narutos popped in to help take care of the weapons as the original Naruto looked up, and saw Storm, and Charles in a room with a computer. Security code override. Priority X. Charles Xavier. Jean flew up with Kurt as Naruto ran over, and threw Todd to Scott as the room shut down. This is nuts. I'm out of here, Todd said before hopping away. I'll go after him, Naruto said before following after Todd as he jumped outside. Naruto jumped out, and saw a man with black hair, and brown eyes wearing jeans, a cowboy hat, black shirt under a brown coat looking at Todd. Logan. 3 metal claws came out of each of Logan's knuckles as he used his left ones to lift his hat over his eyes. Going somewhere, bub? He asked before Charles on the second floor spoke up. No, Logan. Let him go. Logan retracted his claws, and lets Todd go. Naruto pulled his hood down before speaking up. I would have made sure the fridge was stocked up on beer if I knew you were coming back so soon. I came back because I smelled trouble brewing. Of course it could have been Stink Boy over there. Charles smiled at him before speaking up. Welcome back, old friend. We missed you. Naruto snorted before crossing his arms. Speak for yourself. I was the badass one when he was gone. You know how well that went with the ladies. Bayville High School. Next morning, principal office. I can't believe this. Principal Darkholme yelled at Todd, who was sitting on a chair, looking down. She has brown hair in a bun, wearing glasses in a gray business shirt and skirt. You were inside, and you run away. Todd nodded silently before she continued walking to the door. And I bet Xavier wiped you mind. Todd nodded as she opened the door. Get out. Todd quickly got out of the room as she let out a frustrated cry, and changed into another woman. She has bright blue skin, red hair cut to her shoulders, extending slightly in the back, and pale yellow eyes with no pupils. She has a triangle-shaped gem on top of her forehead. She's wearing a sleeveless white dress with skulls on it like a belt, and a high neck, thigh-high white boots, and white gloves that reached nearly to her shoulders without covering her fingers. The room shook as she suddenly heard a male voice that caused her eyes to widen. Don't be so hard on the boy, Mystique. We can't afford to thin out our ranks. Mystique quickly shook her head as metal objects floated in front of her. No, sir. I'm sorry, it won't happen again, she said before the voice spoke up again. Good, Mystique. Remember, this is only the beginning, he said before the objects dropped, and she ran out of the room, changing back. To be continued. Chapter 2. The X-Impulse. Last time. They ran back in to see Kurt, and Todd dodging laser guns in a big circular room. Scott, take care of the guns. Jean, keep them safe from the tentacles. Naruto ordered before making a cross shape with his hands. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, multiple shadow clone technique. Several Narutos popped in to help take care of the weapons as the original Naruto looked up, and saw Storm, and Charles in a room with a computer. Security code override. Priority X. Charles Xavier. Jean flew up with Kurt as Naruto ran over, and threw Todd to Scott as the room shut down. This is nuts. I'm out of here, Todd said before hopping away. I'll go after him, Naruto said before following after Todd as he jumped outside. Naruto jumped out, and saw a man with black hair, and brown eyes wearing jeans, a cowboy hat, black shirt under a brown coat looking at Todd. Logan. 3 metal claws came out of each of Logan's knuckles as he used his left ones to lift his hat over his eyes. Going somewhere, bub? He asked before Charles on the second floor spoke up. No, Logan. Let him go. Logan retracted his claws, and lets Todd go. Naruto pulled his hood down before speaking up. I would have made sure the fridge was stocked up on beer if I knew you were coming back so soon. I came back because I smelled trouble brewing. Of course it could have been Stink Boy over there. Charles smiled at him before speaking up. Welcome back, old friend. We missed you. Naruto snorted before crossing his arms. Speak for yourself. I was the badass one when he was gone. You know how well that went with the ladies. Bayville High School. Next morning, principal office. I can't believe this. Principal Darkholme yelled at Todd, who was sitting on a chair, looking down. She has brown hair in a bun, wearing glasses, in a gray business shirt and skirt. You were inside. And you run away. Todd nodded silently before she continued walking to the door. And I bet Xavier wiped you mind. Todd nodded as she opened the door. Get out. Todd quickly got out of the room as she let out a frustrated cry, and changed into another woman. She has bright blue skin, red hair cut to her shoulders, extending slightly in the back, and pale yellow eyes with no pupils. She has a triangle-shaped gem on top of her forehead. She's wearing a sleeveless white dress with skulls on it like a belt, and a high neck, thigh-high white boots, and white gloves that reached nearly to her shoulders without covering her fingers. The room shook as she suddenly heard a male voice that caused her eyes to widen. Don't be so hard on the boy, Mystique. We can't afford to thin out our ranks. Mystique quickly shook her head as metal objects floated in front of her. No, sir. I'm sorry, it won't happen again, she said before the voice spoke up again. Good, Mystique. Remember, this is only the beginning, he said before the objects dropped, and she ran out of the room, changing back. Now, early morning, Xavier's school for the gifted. Naruto groaned as the sun hits his eyes. He tried to sit up, only to feel a weight on him. He looked down, and saw Jean wearing a large lilac short-sleeve shirt sleeping on him. He smiled before laying his head down, and ran his fingers in her hair, making her snuggle into him. Sometimes I think she should move in here. She sleeps here more than her own room. After an hour, Naruto woke her up. Morning, beautiful. She smiled tiredly at him before speaking up. Morning yourself. She gave him a kiss before he got up in only black, gray camouflage pajama pants. He walked to his dresser before he looked over his shoulder, saw Jean lifting her shirt, quickly turned around, and blushed when he saw her white panties. So why did you sneak in my room? He asked with a hitch in his voice before feeling her arms wrap around him. He blushed harder, feeling her bare breasts on his back. I've gotten used to your warmth. I think I should move in, she replied before nibbling on his ear. He groaned before sighing. Yeah, like Professor X would let you do that. He heard her chuckle before she let go, and walked away. Naruto looked at the mirror and watched her swaying hips before she stopped at a door. She looked over her shoulder, and winked. Wanna join me in the shower? Naruto sighed before replying. No, we wouldn't leave the bathroom. Although you really make it hard not to take you when you act like this. She smiled before going through the door to the bathroom. Naruto turned to the dresser where several pictures of his friends from his world are. He sighed as memories of fighting a woman with a third eye came to him before shaking his head. Can't think of that, we won the war. Barely, he thought before getting his clothes out of the dresser, and waited for his turn in the shower. Charles Cerebro. Discovery. Mutant signature. The second detection in this vicinity. Identity confirmed. Cerebro brought up a picture of a Caucasian girl with a petite and slender figure. She has long brown hair pulled up into a ponytail with layers that frame her face and light blue eyes. She's wearing a pink long-sleeved sweater over a creamy-colored undershirt, light blue capris with an orange stripe on each pant leg, and brown sandals. She has a necklace and wearing a small brown backpack. Name: Catherine. Kitty. Pride resident, Deerfield, Illinois, age 15. Charles took off the helmet, and pressed a button. Prep the Blackbird. He turned, and went out to see Naruto, and Jean holding hands. Naruto. Jean. I need your help. He explained he was going to try to get Kitty to join, having Naruto shrug before speaking up. Okay, Professor X. I'll make some clones so we don't miss any classes today. He made a cross seal, and 2 clones popped up with one henge transformation into Jean. They walked to an underground hangar, and up to the Blackbird, which is a large black jet. For better image, type 10 jet evolution. They walked in, and Charles turned the jet on before the hangar opened. Kitty. Pride, Illinois. Kitty walked to her front door before a female voice stopped her. Kitty. I thought we thought it was best if you'd stay home today. Kitty turned around, and saw her mother with light brown hair wearing a lilac shirt under a coat looking at her worriedly. Kitty sighed before replying, "Yeah, well, like, what's the point, you know? You guys don't want to talk about it, and all, like, totally go crazy sitting in the house all day. But should you really be at school?" her mother asked before a male voice spoke up from upstairs. "Kitty, honey, where are you?" Kitty looked to her mother, and clasped her hands together. "Please, Mom. Dad would just make me stay home." Her mother sighed before nodding. "All right." Kitty smiled before dashing out. On the Blackbird with Naruto, Jean, and Charles. Jean sighed in the co-pilot seat as Naruto was in the seat behind her, leaning back looking up. She turned to Charles before speaking up. "Why just us two? Why not all of us?" Charles pushed a few buttons before replying. "Because you are the only one that can connect with her. And I know you two don't like to be away from each other for long." Naruto smirked before speaking up. "Maybe you just want my magnetic personality to win her over." Jean rolled her eyes before looking back. "I swear if I didn't love you I wouldn't put up with that cocky attitude." Naruto leaned up to her, and gave her a kiss. "It's not cocky if you can back it up." She smiled before looking to Charles. "What about the other kid Cerebro picked up? At the foster home?" "Yes, Lance Alvers. You let me worry about that, Jean. You focus on Kitty's parents. Remember, you're a model of what we're offering. No pressure." Jean chuckled nervously before turning away. "Yeah, to think I missed a nice relaxing midterm for this." Later, all three were talking to Kitty's parents on their front porch. Her father has short graying hair with glasses, and a mustache goatee combo. He's wearing green polo shirt with brown slacks, and shoes. Mrs. Pride looked at them worriedly. "What do you mean? How do you know Kitty?" Jean walked forward, and spoke up. "If you let us come in, and we'll answer any questions." Mr. Pride glared at her. "Anything you can say out here," he said harshly, getting Naruto to growl a little. Charles sighed, laced his fingers in front of him, and explained. "Very well. I think you know Kitty's going through a very unique transition. We want to help her through it. Why don't you tell us about last night?" Mr. and Mrs. Pride looked shocked at that. "What happened last night is none of your business." "Good day," Mr. Pride said before pushing his wife inside, and shutting the door. Jean sighed before turning to Charles. "Next time we should call first, and get hanged up on. Less hassle." Charles looked to them for a moment before speaking up. "You two will need to make contact with Kitty personally. At her school. New York, Xavier's School for the Gifted." Logan was cleaning up his blue motorcycle before smelling something. He climbed on top of the mansion, sniffed again, and growled. "Sabretooth." He quickly got down, and dressed in his uniform. It's a black bodysuit that's orange on the chest, knee-high boots with knee pads, gloves, belt with X, buckle, and mask with black, cut, ears, on it. For better image, type Wolverine's first outfit evolution. He walked to his bike, put on his helmet, and drove off past Scott and Kurt. Kurt dusted off some leaves that got on him before looking to Logan. "What's up with Wolverine?" Scott raised an eyebrow before replying. "Don't know. But he is packing some serious attitude." Kurt quickly looked to him, and smiled. "Want to follow him?" Scott nodded before dashing to the garage. "Should we take the X-van?" Kurt asked, pointing to a black armored SUV. "No, something low profile. And cooler." He ran to a red convertible with white racing stripes on it, and X-shaped rims. "You coming?" Kurt teleported in the passenger seat, and they took off after Wolverine. Naruto, Deerfield High School. Naruto walked down the stairs to the first floor, and spotted a depressed Kitty getting her gym bag out of her locker. "Well, she is pretty," he thought before noticing two other girls, one blonde, and one brunette, walk over, and push Kitty in her locker. He jogged over to the locker, and looked through the vents. "You okay?" he asked before hearing her pound the door. "Get me out." Okay, give me the combination, and I will." Kitty took a deep breath before giving him the combination while pushing on the door. 3. She phased through, and into Naruto, knocking him down. He groaned before looking to her. Wish I could meet more pretty girls like this. She looked down to him with a small blush. Pretty. He thinks I'm pretty, she thought before noticing Naruto, and their position with her on top of him, and his arms around her waist, making her blush. What's going on here? They heard a male voice asked as Naruto looked to his left. He saw a taller than average teen that has a muscular and solid frame. He has dark brown hair that he keeps long and brown eyes. His skin complexion is tan olive colored. He's wearing a brown leather vest over a black shirt with torn jeans that have tears around his knees. Brown boots and black fingerless gloves on each hand. Nothing. Just meeting a pretty girl, Naruto said before getting up, and helping Kitty up. Well thanks. Kitty trailed off before Naruto smiled, grabbed her hand, and kissed it. Naruto Uzumaki. Kitty blushed again before quickly walking down the hall with Naruto following as the teen looked to the lockers before looking to them. Naruto caught up with her, and smiled. Want to talk about what happened back there? Kitty stiffened before shaking her head. No, nothing happened. You got me out of my locker. Naruto got in front of her, and puts his hands on her shoulder. I know you phased through the door. Wish I had that ability growing up. What are you talking about? Naruto smiled before forming a blue ball in his right hand. You don't need to be afraid. The ball disappeared as Kitty looked to him wide-eyed. You have a power too. Naruto smirked before making a clone. They jumped up to the ceiling, and stuck there. A lot more, he said before dropping down, and dispelling the clone. And we can teach you how to use your gifts. Don't you mean curse? Naruto shook his head before replying. No. A gift. It's only a curse if you want it to be. She shook her head before running off. This is too much. Naruto sighed before walking out, not noticing the male teen from a little earlier watching them. Outside, Kitty ran up to a female coach in sweatpants, and a jersey. The coach blew her whistle, and looked to her. You were almost late, Pride. Kitty panted before looking to the two girls that pushed her in her locker. Sorry coach. Had trouble with my locker, you know. The coach pointed to the long jump. Okay, you three to the long jump. Naruto watched with Jean from the sidelines. That her? Jean asked watching Kitty get ready. Yes. She has a phasing ability. Naruto said before noticed something up on the roof, and saw the male teen from earlier with two other boys. From the looks of the two looking at a small vent. They're trying to get inside. He thought before looking to see Kitty trip before making the jump, and punch the ground. He noticed the two other girls make cat noises before sighing. Her bullies, he said before they walked over, as one of the girls got ready, and ran ahead. The ground suddenly shook before sand came up, and knocks the girl to the ground. Naruto noticed a crack leading to the teen he met. That must be Lance. He stopped as Kitty ran into him. We got to stop meeting like this, he said before she pushed him away, and ran into the theater building. Jean looked to where Kitty ran and sighed. Let's go make sure she's safe. They walked in, and saw Kitty on stage kicking things. Naruto turned to Jean. Why don't you talk to her? I'll stay quiet. Jean nodded as they walked down, and saw Kitty phase her arms through a bowl. Kitty, are you alright? Kitty jumped as she saw Jean walk to the stage before scoffing. Are you one of Riley's friends? Because, I had nothing to do with that. Kitty said picking up a frowning mask. No, I'm not. Jean said as Naruto walked up behind Kitty. Kitty scoffed again before putting on the mask. Well, you look like you'd be. Please. Like Jean would hang out with a girl like that. Naruto said, startling Kitty before he took the mask. Come on. No need to hide such a pretty face. He said before the mask floated as Jean lifted her hand, and puts it back. You know. One morning I woke up and found out I had powers. I hated it also. But after training, I loved it. Jean said before looking up to Naruto. Why don't you give her your story? Naruto shrugged before speaking up. I was born awesome. Seeing Jean stare at him caused him to sigh. Okay. I'm from another world where everyone can do what I do. If you train early enough for it. About 7 years ago I was transported here, and, de-aged, to 10 years old. We haven't worked on a long-term way back other than letters. Kitty shook her head before walking away. I need time to think. She walked out the door as a hand roughly grabbed Jean, and turned her around where she saw Lance. Listen, Red. Naruto interrupted him by grabbing his wrist, and twisting it. Don't do that. Suddenly Lance's eyes rolled back, and the room shook until Naruto grabbed a knife with a serrated black blade, sharp edge on both sides of knife, from behind his back, and puts it to Lance's neck. Go on. I could lose my balance. Lance glared at him before stopping. Naruto lets him go, and watched him walk off. I'm the only friend she needs. Lance said as Naruto flipped him off before looking to Jean. I think we should get ready if we can't find Kitty. I have a bad feeling that something's going to happen. With Scott and Kurt. Scott and Kurt stopped in front of a parking garage, and Kurt took a look around before hitting the door. Hey, watch the door panel. They're smudge resistant, not dent resistant. Scott said as Kurt looked up, and saw Wolverine on top of the garage looking around. There he is. They saw him turn around, and caught a glance of another man on a motorcycle. Sabretooth. Wolverine growled, having his claws on his left hand come out. He's wearing a brown-black vest under a sleeveless coat with long blonde hair. He has armor on his arms, large belt, black pants, and knee-high boots with long claw-like fingernails. For better image, type Sabretooth evolution. Sabretooth drove to Wolverine before Wolverine dodged, and sliced the front tire off. Sabretooth went off the edge, and leapt on the lower floor, having his bike fall on Scott's car after Kurt teleported them out. Oh man, my car. Scott yelled out, looking at his damaged car. Up above, Sabretooth pushed a car through the roof, before Wolverine came down to the lower floor. Wolverine growled as he stood up, and was pinned against a stone support by another car pushed by Sabretooth, who smirked. One shall fall by the other's hand. Such is our destiny. Sabretooth yelled as Wolverine grunted. I never got that philosophy mumbo jumbo. Hey hairball, I got your destiny right here. Scott, in his suit, yelled as Kurt in his normal form teleported in. Scott shot a laser, hitting Sabretooth into a van, having Wolverine push the car from him. Kurt teleported to Sabretooth, who punches him away. Wolverine then tackled Sabretooth into the elevator. Wolverine growled, and brought out his right claws only to get kicked out, and the doors to close. Wolverine cuts the door open as Sabretooth yelled out. A taste of what's yet to come, Wolverine. Scott and Kurt came over to Wolverine, and Kurt smirked. Oh yeah, we showed him. We're the X-Men. Wolverine snorted before looking to them. I don't fight your battles. So don't fight mine. He walked away as Kurt shrugged. He loves us. Scott rolled his eyes at Kurt. Oh yeah, big time. Naruto, Jean, and Charles, outside of Deerfield High School. Naruto and Jean, in their suits, are with Charles as Kitty's parents pulled up. They ran up to them with worried looks. Where's Kitty? Mr. Pride asked as Jean spoke up. She just broke in the office. Mrs. Pride's eyes widened. She's never done anything like this before. Charles looked to Jean and Naruto before speaking up. Go with them, I'll catch up. They ran to the office where Lance was holding Kitty's wrist before Mr. Pride spoke up. Let go of my daughter. He ran over as Lance caused a bookshelf to fall on him. No way, old man. She's with me. Lance created a hole in the wall just as Naruto hits him with a powered-down Rasengan spiraling sphere. He stood in front of Kitty, and glared at Lance. That's no way to treat a lady. Lance got up, and looked to Kitty, who was holding on to Naruto before scoffing. All right, have it your way. His eyes rolled back in his head before the building shook. Naruto looked up, and cursed as the ceiling above him, and Kitty caved. Crap. He grabbed Kitty, and threw them to the floor, letting the derbies fall on top of him. Kitty, Naruto. Jean and Kitty's parents yelled out as Jean used her telekinesis to create a shield around them. Jean, your powers. Use your powers. Jean heard the professor's voice inside her head. I'm trying, it's too much. She thought before Charles replied. I'll help you. Keep your mind clear. She grunted as a large concrete block fell down. But Naruto, and Kitty. She thought before Charles interrupted her. Keep your mind clear. Kitty's parents looked on worriedly to the pile where Kitty's was under. Suddenly, Kitty walked out with Naruto, who shivered. Whoa, I won't get used to that, he said before Kitty ran up and hugged her parents. Everyone hold on to me. I'll get us out of here, she said before phasing everyone out where Charles was waiting. Yes, Kitty, you do have a gift. And you've used it well. Kitty hugged her mother as she apologized before walking up to her father. Dad, these people want to help me. And I trust them. Some with my life, she said, glancing at Naruto. Her father nodded before looking to Charles. I think we have a lot to talk about. Later, with Lance. Lance watched as the officers looked at the school before hearing a female's voice behind him. I'd say you blew your chance at this school, haven't you? He turned, and saw Darkholme behind him. Who are you? He asked, making her smirk. Your new advisor. I made an opening for you at Bayville High School. She suddenly transformed into her normal form. I have much to teach you. My little Avalanche. Xavier's School for the Gifted. A few days later, Naruto walked in his room after helping Kitty into hers, and heard a voice. Kit, we may have a problem. Naruto looked to his bed, and saw a fox sitting on it. What's that, Kurama? He asked as Kurama stretched. Your mate's barriers are breaking. I feel it. Naruto's eyes widened at that. What? It won't hurt her, will it? He asked as Kurama shook his head. No. But that being will escape. Or take her body over. I can't believe there's someone like a Jinchuriki, power of human sacrifice, in this world. Naruto sighed before rubbing the back of his neck. Anything we can do. I know Professor X said she's dangerous. Kurama looked down for a moment before replying. Maybe. I need some time to think about a safe way since this world doesn't have chakra. For now, don't say anything until I see if it will work. He ran out of the room as Naruto groaned. I hope nothing bad will come from this. But knowing my luck for anything that's not gambling, or game related, it'll all hit the fan. Chapter 3. Rogue Recruit. Last time. Suddenly, Kitty walked out with Naruto, who shivered. Whoa, I won't get used to that, he said before Kitty ran up and hugged her parents. Everyone hold on to me. I'll get us out of here, she said before phasing everyone out where Charles was waiting. Yes, Kitty, you do have a gift. And you've used it well. Kitty hugged her mother as she apologized before walking up to her father. Dad, these people want to help me. And I trust them. Some with my life, she said, glancing at Naruto. Her father nodded before looking to Charles. I think we have a lot to talk about. Later, with Lance. Lance watched as the officers looked at the school before hearing a female's voice behind him. I'd say you blew your chance at this school, haven't you? He turned, and saw Darkholme behind him. Who are you? He asked, making her smirk. Your new advisor. I made an opening for you at Bayville High School. She suddenly transformed into her normal form. I have much to teach you. My little Avalanche. Xavier's School for the Gifted. A few days later, Naruto walked in his room after helping Kitty into hers, and heard a voice. Kit, we may have a problem. Naruto looked to his bed, and saw a fox sitting on it. What's that, Kurama? He asked as Kurama stretched. Your mate's barriers are breaking. I feel it. Naruto's eyes widened at that. What? It won't hurt her, will it? He asked as Kurama shook his head. No. But that being will escape. Or take her body over. I can't believe there's someone like a Jinchuriki, power of human sacrifice, in this world. Naruto sighed before rubbing the back of his neck. Anything we can do. I know Professor X said she's dangerous. Kurama looked down for a moment before replying. Maybe. I need some time to think about a safe way since this world doesn't have chakra. For now, don't say anything until I see if it will work. He ran out of the room as Naruto groaned. I hope nothing bad will come from this. But knowing my luck for anything that's not gambling, or game related, it'll all hit the fan. Now, Caldecott County, Mississippi. A teenage girl sighed watching a party on the deck of a building by the water. She has short auburn hair with white streaks as bangs in the front of her. She has gray eyes and a pale skin complexion, and purplish blackish makeup and lipstick. She's wearing a transparent green see-through blouse with a black halter top underneath, a black leather skirt with black leggings. She has thick combat boots, and dog collar around her neck and wrists, and lac gloves covered her hands. She turned around, and leaned over the railing as two teen boys walked out in football jerseys. One with black hair smiled as he brought the blonde-haired one out, and noticed the girl. There's that girl you've been staring at for the past week. Please tell me you at least know her name. He continued as the blonde shook his head. The brown-haired teen face palmed before sighing. Dude, you're hopeless. He pulled him over where the girl turned around to face them. Can I help you? I won't do the accent. Instead of, of course. I won't remember to do them. So just imagine that, please. Yes. Dance. Me. You. The blonde stammered out as the girl rolled her eyes. Sorry, I'm not the dancing type. She replied, making the boy look down. She sighed before smiling at him. Okay, why not? What's the harm in one dance? Say asked, walking inside with the boys following. After dancing for several minutes, the dark-haired boy looked behind him, and whispered. Go on. Get closer, Cody. He pushed Cody into the girl, having them fall over. Getting up, Cody helped the girl up, touching her skin after the sleeve on her blouse was pushed up. They both screamed for a moment before Cody fell over unconscious. The girl groaned as memories of Cody flooded her brain. I see images. What am I? Who am I? She asked as the other boy shook Cody. Cody, what did you do? He asked before the girl made a break for the door. He ran in front of it, blocking her path. She suddenly remembered something, and pushed the boy out of the way. Whoa, I thought only Cody had moves like that. He said, watching the girl run down the street, and out of sight. Xavier's School for the Gifted, night. A man dressed in black with a mask dropped into the attic before hearing a voice. Impressive. You got past the automatic defensive by using the air ducts. He turned around, and saw Storm walking to him. But you won't get past me. She yelled, having the wind blow in from the windows, forcing the man back in the ducts. Testing me, She floated up, and a storm cloud rolled in. Okay, you'll see why I'm called Storm. She directed the water in the vents, flushing the man into the danger room. You look a little flushed. The man looked up, and saw Storm in the control room smirking. And the forecast isn't good. The man jumped up but was hit by water before being frozen. The man broke free before looking up to Storm. That was cold, he said, making her walk to a keyboard. Then let's warm you up. A laser gun came out of the wall, and shot at him. He jumped up, and had 3 metal claws come out of each of his knuckles before driving them in the gun, destroying it, and blasting him back, tearing his costume. You're going to have to do better than that. Suddenly something came out of the floor with blades on it, and started twirling around. He jumped over, and sliced the motor, having it slow down. Stop. At this moment, this is all we can afford, Wolverine. The man lifted his hood, reviling Logan, who walked to the elevator. Hey, when I give a demo, I give a demo. And demo means what? Demolition? Scott asked as he, and everyone else is in the control room watching him. What's the point of this really? He asked before Storm turned to him, and explained. The point, young Cyclops, is teaching you how to find the weak points in sophisticated security systems. She walked to another screen as Wolverine walked in past Kurt in his normal form, eating popcorn upside down from the ceiling. That's right, bub. And ours could use more work. Kurt finished his handful of popcorn before giving Wolverine 2 thumbs up, upside down. That was tight. I give it 2 thumbs up. He said, having Jean roll her eyes at him before leaning against Naruto. Strom brought up a video of Wolverine getting in the vents while dodging lasers. Needs to be more secure. Maybe electrify them. Or poison gas. Storm sighed before looking to him. Wolverine, she said, rolling her eyes as he sighed. Okay. Sleeping gas then. He replied, crossing his arms before Naruto spoke up. You could just make them smaller. Everyone looked to him, and raised an eyebrow. Oh what? Wolverine wants to kill them, and I want to keep them from entering in the first place. Am I the only person that really sees that tactical flaw? Kitty shivered before rubbing her arms. Is it just me? Or is like everyone seriously freaked out by this? Everyone stared at her, causing her shoulders to slump. Oh, it's just me. Great. She asked before Kurt smiled at her. Kitty, relax. He teleported beside her, causing her to jump a little. We're right beside you. He teleported to her other side, using his tail to hold the popcorn out to her. Popcorn. She moved away from Kurt, causing him to frown. Oh right. Sorry. Next time I'll honk before teleporting. Kitty looked down before speaking up. Whatever. Look guys, it's late, if it's no biggie to you. She started phasing through the floor. I'm gonna drop out. Kurt sighed sadly as she disappeared. She's not into the furry dude. Jean walked over, and puts a hand on his shoulder. It's alright Kurt. She'll come around. Suddenly, Charles wheeled in with a serious look on his face. X-Men. We have an emergency. Naruto, Scott, prepare the Blackbird for launch, and since it's a weekend, get the full team. Naruto and Scott nodded before Charles continued explaining. Cerebro has detected a new mutant in Caldecott County, Mississippi. My mental impression received a highly disturbed person. Our mutant is a danger to herself, and others. X-Men. We have a rogue. Later, everyone's in the Blackbird, and in their costumes with Naruto in the pilot's seat with Kurt. Stealth mode stable. Leveling off at 10,000 feet. Kurt said as Naruto nodded. Good. Keep this up, and you'll be a pilot yet. Kurt smiled as he leaned back, and flew with his feet. Okay. Show off. Naruto pressed a couple of buttons before glancing back. I've logged our flight plan with the FAA. We're cleared through to Jackson, and we'll take the van from there. Charles nodded as Kitty smiled, wearing a costume similar to Jean's. She's wearing a gold-collared, dark navy blue bodysuit with a light purple V-shaped stripe in the front. A gold utility belt, marking the X logo around her waist. Light purple combat boot, and thick gold gloves on both of her hands. You know. Jean glanced back to Kitty, who spoke. Naruto seems so together. And he's cute. That's an understatement. Jean said with a smirk as they continued to talk. Kurt frowned before teleporting outside on the jet. Everyone looked on in shock before he lost his balance, and came back inside into Kitty. Kurt. The Blackbird's not the place to fool around. You scared Kitty. Charles said to Kurt as he rubbed the back of his head. Sorry Kitty. Kitty pushed him off, and got out of her seat. Just, stay away from me. She said, walking up, and sitting beside Naruto as Wolverine rolled his eyes. Kids. Naruto then turned to Kurt and gave him a slight menacing look. If you do that again Kurt, you'll be in for a world of hurt in the next training session. Kurt gulped while nodding slowly, not wanting to deal with Naruto's training. Later, the X-Men are inside of a van outside of a hospital as Wolverine sighed. Is this really necessary? Charles nodded before focusing. Yes Logan. The boy, Cody's the key to finding our rogue. But he's unconscious, and his mind's jumbled. We need someone on the inside. He said, watching Jean from inside Cody's room wearing nurse's clothing. Airport Caldecott. Mystique in her normal form was sitting in a limo beside another woman. She has short brown hair. She's wearing dark sunglasses over her eyes, and has a long cane with her. Her attire being a green, 3/4 sleeve shirt tucked into her blue jeans, and a black belt. 5 years Irene. We kept her hidden for 5 years in this backwoods town, and in 5 minutes, it all falls apart. She posse's the potential for limitless powers. We cannot lose her. Especially to Xavier. You see the future Irene. What do you see? Where will she go? Mystique asked as Irene sighed. Home. Or where she thinks is home. Later, with Rogue. Rogue walked up to a 1-story house as images of a man came to her. She ran up to the door before blinking, and reached up to the roof picking up a key. She walked into a room with pictures of Cody with trophies in it. Outside, Mystique's limo pulled up, and Irene puts a hand on her shoulder. You're not going to hurt her, right? After all, Raven, she's your. Mystique stopped her before she could finish. I know, Irene. I know. Trust me, she'll come to us willingly. With the right incentive, she said, turning into Wolverine. She stepped out, and dashed inside to Rogue. Who are you, and what do you want? Wolverine snared at her. You girly. I want you. Mystique jumped at her, forcing Rogue to run out the door as she was chased. You're dealing with the X-Men, girly. Outside with Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Shadowcat, and Naruto. So does this like bite, or what? Shadowcat asked, walking down an ally as Wolverine snorted before. The professor says the girl's mind is confused and unfocused. So keep looking. He looked at a garbage bin before quickly looking forward, and sniffed. Got something? Naruto asked as Wolverine nodded. Yeah, fear. They ran down the alley, and saw Rogue with one glove on the ground in front of Irene. Seeing Wolverine, she screamed before running. Run, Irene. They chased her past Irene, and she jumped over a fence before Kurt stopped them. Wait, Wolverine. She seemed scared of you. Let us try. Wolverine sighed before nodding. All right, kid. Just don't mess up, capiche? Kurt saluted before walking forward. And squirt. Put on your best face. No need to scare the girl anymore. Naruto and Shadowcat ran past him before he spoke up again. And keep an eye on Half Pint. Shadowcat stopped, turned around, and glared at him. Hey. Naruto pulled her along with him. Don't pay any attention to him. He comes up with nicknames for everyone. He turned to Kurt, who's in his disguise, and spoke up. Teleport ahead to stop her, we'll catch up. Nodding, Kurt teleported away, catching up with Rogue. Guten Tag, Fräulein. Rogue jumped a little before turning around, and saw Kurt on a swing. No need to be afraid. He teleported beside her, and sat down on a birdbath. What do you want? She asked as Kurt smiled. To help you. We're the good guys. Especially me. Rogue crossed her arms as she stared at him. As they were taking, Shadowcat came through a fence as Naruto jumped over. Shadowcat tried sneaking up on her until Kurt yelled at her. Kitty number. Kitty tackled Rogue down before she was pushed off. Kurt tried to calm her down, but she broke his watch, revealing his normal form. She gasped before pushing him with her ungloved hand, causing both to hiss in pain before Kurt fell down, and Rogue teleported away. Crap. Kitty, contact the professor, I'll find her. Creating a clone to watch over them, Naruto jumped up on a roof, and concentrated in locating her. While pinpointing her, he was feeling that she was calling out for help of any sorts. Luckily for him, her emotions were very erratic and very strong that he eventually was able to find her. There she is, he said, looking towards a graveyard before dashing over to it. When he caught up, he saw her fall on a stone bench, breaking it. When is this all going to end? She asked before he spoke up. I don't really know about Kurt's power. She jumped, turning around, and saw Naruto taking his hood off. But your power is here to stay. Rogue got up, and started backing away, causing Naruto to raise his hands. Whoa. I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to talk. Seeing her stop, he continued. Look. We just want to help you. Help you understand your powers. Like controlling when to use it, or not. Before he could continue, Jean floated down. Hello. She greeted as Rogue took a step back. Do I know you? She asked before grabbing her head. Oh. These memories. You're Jean Grey. She tried to run until Jean stopped her. Wait, if you know my name then you know I'm not a threat. A thin communicator floated to Rogue as Jean continued. If you ever want to talk, I'll be there. Rogue looked at it until she noticed Cyclops and Storm. No, I won't be taken away. She yelled, dashing away until Naruto dashed in front of her. Wait. He stopped as Rogue puts her hand on his face, and pushed him away. They both hissed in pain, before Rogue ran away as Naruto fell to one knee. Well, that hurt. Jean ran to him as the others walked up. What happened? We were connecting until Storm picked up after Jean. Until she saw me. For some reason, she's terrified of me. Naruto got up, and they walked in the direction that Rogue went in. Later, Cyclops walked to a building as Rogue ran out, saw him, and pushed him on the ground, having a beam shoot out, and hit a power line. She went back inside, where Jean was waiting for her. I wanted to help, I really did. But some people doesn't want help. She yelled before lifting her hand as Rogue teleported away. Outside, she fell to the ground as Jean ran to her. Hey, are you alright? She asked Rogue as she crawled away into Storm. Easy, child. We're your friends. Rogue quickly grabbed her exposed arm, having electricity spark around them. Throwing Storm back, Rogue floated up as rain poured down, and lightning hits the building around them. Naruto and Cyclops ran over, and saw Rogue as lightning hits a power line. Crap, if that line falls in the water, Storm will die. Cyclops yelled as he ran to Storm, grabbed her, and Jean lifted them as the line fell. Rogue screamed before teleporting away as the others caught up with Wolverine holding Kurt. Everyone alright? Charles asked as they nodded. Yes, but we lost the girl. Cyclops said as Charles nodded. Yes. Her mind's confused. I can't locate her. And I sense another person at hand here. Wolverine sniffed the air before growling. Mystique. She can change her body. But not her scent. Naruto soon nodded hearing this. Yeah, it all makes sense now. She probably morphed into some of us to freak her out, making her think we are mutant hunters or something. Kitty walked up to Charles, and spoke up. Should we go after her? Charles shook his head before replying. No. She needs to come willingly. Plus we need to tend to the others. A few days later, Bayville High. Mystique in her principal disguise smiled as Rogue walked out of her office before hearing a male voice. She'll make a fine addition to our team. She nodded, changing to her normal form. Yes. We were lucky getting to her first. A shadow appeared behind her before he spoke again. And you're certain the memories of the X-Men are gone? He asked as she nodded. Earlier, with Naruto. Naruto was sitting in a room with bars on the window before the door opened up, and a Caucasian girl with blue eyes and a somewhat skinny but slender figure was pushed in wearing a straight jacket. She has black shoulder-length hair that covered her face a little. She glared at the door, until Naruto spoke up. Hello, Wanda. The now identified Wanda quickly turned around, and smiled a little. Naruto. She yelled, running over into his opened arms, giving her a caring hug. Nice to see you again, Wanda. Staying out of trouble? He asked as she shook her head. Hell no. I'm giving them hell every day. Naruto chuckled before hugging her tighter. Good. He let go before looking to the wall, and saw two folding chair, and a table. Sorry about not visiting last week. In person anyways. I was helping Charles out. He picked up the chairs, and unfolded them so they could sit down, and talk. So, any way you could get me out of here? She asked as he chuckled. No. Not yet. You still would need an adult to sign you out. Charles just wants to make sure it's not too early. She sighed before Naruto unhooked her arms, and looked to the door. Not seeing the guards, he unsealed a board game for them. Monopoly? She asked as he nodded. Yeah. What piece would you want this time? She looked away before mumbling something. What was that? She sighed before speaking up. The cat. He smirked before setting the game up. Chapter 4. Mutant Crush. Last time. Rogue screamed before teleporting away as the others caught up with Wolverine holding Kurt. Everyone alright? Charles asked as they nodded. Yes, but we lost the girl. Cyclops said as Charles nodded. Yes. Her mind's confused. I can't locate her. And I sense another person at hand here. Wolverine sniffed the air before growling. Mystique. She can change her body. But not her scent. Naruto soon nodded hearing this. Yeah. It all makes sense now. She probably morphed into some of us to freak her out, making her think we are mutant hunters or something. Kitty walked up to Charles, and spoke up. Should we go after her? Charles shook his head before replying. No. She needs to come willingly. Plus we need to tend to the others. A few days later, Bayville High. Mystique in her principal disguise smiled as Rogue walked out of her office before hearing a male voice. She'll make a fine addition to our team. She nodded, changing to her normal form. Yes. We were lucky getting to her first. A shadow appeared behind her before he spoke again. And you're certain the memories of the X-Men are gone? He asked as she nodded. Earlier, with Naruto. Naruto was sitting in a room with bars on the window before the door opened up, and a Caucasian girl with blue eyes and a somewhat skinny but slender figure was pushed in wearing a straight jacket. She has black shoulder-length hair that covered her face a little. She glared at the door, until Naruto spoke up. Hello Wanda. The now identified Wanda quickly turned around, and smiled a little. Naruto. She yelled, running over into his opened arms, giving her a caring hug. Nice to see you again, Wanda. Staying out of trouble? He asked as she shook her head. Hell no. I'm giving them hell every day. Naruto chuckled before hugging her tighter. Good. He let go before looking to the wall, and saw two folding chair, and a table. Sorry about not visiting last week. In person anyways. I was helping Charles out. He picked up the chairs, and unfolded them so they could sit down, and talk. So, any way you could get me out of here? She asked as he chuckled. No. Not yet. You still would need an adult to sign you out. Charles just wants to make sure it's not too early. She sighed before Naruto unhooked her arms, and looked to the door. Not seeing the guards, he unsealed a board game for them. Monopoly? She asked as he nodded. Yeah. What piece would you want this time? She looked away before mumbling something. What was that? She sighed before speaking up. The cat. He smirked before setting the game up. Now. Lubbock, Texas night at the state fair. Naruto was sitting beside Jean, both wearing Western attire of jeans, boots, and cowboy hats, Jean's red, and Naruto's black. Naruto leaned forward as they watched a monster truck crush a bunch of cars. And let's hear it for the lady of monster trucks. Charlie Ray. The announcer said as Logan, also wearing Western clothes, walked down with 2 cups of soda, and one with beer in a tray. Miss anything? No. They're getting ready to show the teen we're here to recruit. Naruto replied, taking a sip of his soda. Now let's hear it for our main event. The world's strongest teenager. Fred, the Blob, Dukes. In the middle of the arena, stood a tall, heavily overweight teen with a blonde mohawk in a white leotard, standing behind 2 monster trucks. Fred grabbed 2 chains connected to each truck, and wrapped them around his arms. All right, Fred. Let's show them what you can do. The trucks moved forward as Fred grunted, keeping them still as their front ends went in the air. He pulled them back, jumped in the air, and landed on each tailgate as they hit each other. The crowd cheered as he took a bow, lost his balance, and fell to the ground. Everyone started laughing as Fred was glaring at all of them. Later, Fred's locker room. Fred, now wearing a beige t-shirt over a white one, and in overalls, punched the wall for a 3rd time before throwing a locker at the wall, bending it. Something wrong? Fred heard a female voice ask before turning to see Raven standing at the doorway. He snorted before turning back to the wall. Yeah, these small town hicks. They laughed at me for the last time. I'm getting out of here for good. And I know where your talents can be put to good use. Outside, Naruto, holding Jean by the waist, was following after Logan while walking to the room Fred was in. When they got there, they saw a smirking Raven before Fred closed the door. A few days later, Bayville High School principal's office. Raven handed Fred his class schedule. Any questions, Mr. Dukes? She asked as he scratched his head. I don't know about doing the school thing again. I didn't fit in at the last ones. Raven smirked before she replied. You won't have any more trouble. As the principal, I can make sure of that. Fred stood up, and walked outside as other students walked past him. He looked up to see Duncan wearing the school jersey before picking him up. Hey, where am I supposed to be? He asked as Duncan smirked. Don't know. A sideshow. He laughed, causing Fred's face to go red in rage. Don't you laugh. He threw Duncan across the hall before ripping a section of the lockers off the wall. At me. He was about to slam the lockers down, until a female's voice stopped him. Hi, you must be new here. He turned to see Jean with a book bag, and holding a book over her chest. I'm Jean Grey. Fred smiled before noticing the lockers. Yeah, I'm new, he replied, putting the lockers back as Jean smiled. Welcome to Bayville. What do your friends call you? Fred wiped his hands on his overalls before replying. I don't have many friends. He shook her hand before continuing. I'm Fred. Fred Dukes. He winced as the lockers moved a little. Well, Fred, I want to apologize for Duncan. He's stupid. She bent down and picked up his schedule. Need help finding your class? She asked as he nodded. Yes, please. She looked over the paper for a moment before nodding. All right. Your first class is right there. She pointed down the hall before giving his paper back. And don't worry. The first day's always the roughest. It'll get better, see you later. She walked down another hall as he smiled at her. Naruto, drama class. All right, for this drama exercise, you'll each be doing a scene with a partner. The teacher said as he handed scripts around. And since some of you haven't picked a partner yet, I'll be pairing you up myself. He walked to a girl with brown hair sitting behind Scott, Taryn, and Scott. He went to Rogue, who slid down her seat behind Naruto. You and Naruto. Naruto sighed as the teacher continued. You two will be doing Shakespeare, Henry V. I've marked it, Henry, and Catherine, daughter of the French king. A blonde-haired boy tapped Naruto on the right shoulder. Nice one, Naruto. I don't think Ms. Doom and Gloom has said more than 2 words the entire semester. You'll end up doing both parts yourself. The entire class laughed until Naruto spoke up. You're just jealous I have a hot girl while you got paired up with a dude. Rogue blushed a little as the teacher cleared his throat. Okay, class. Get together with your scene partners to rehearse, you'll perform on Tuesday. Naruto looked back at Rogue, who had her arms folded as she looked down. You okay with this? Naruto asked as she stared up to him. I'm not scared of you. Naruto shrugged before replying. Didn't say you were. I just want to make sure you're okay doing it with me. She glared, causing Naruto to look down. Just tell your weirdo friends to stay back. Naruto sighed again before the boy spoke up again. Oh yeah, she wants you. Can you blame her? I am the most awesome and sexy man in the school. Naruto said with a smirk, pointing at himself. Lunchtime, cafeteria. Naruto held 2 trays of food as he walked to the table where he and the others were sitting at. He passed Rogue, who sat at a table with Lance and Todd, before dropping the trays in front of Kitty and Jean. He picked up a rose from his back pocket and handed it to Jean. For the pretty lady. Out of the corner of his eye, Naruto saw Kitty pout before tapping her left shoulder. She looked to see another rose held by Naruto. Come on now, Kitty. Didn't think I'd forget about you, right? He sat down in between them as Kurt walked over and sat down. Kitty looked over to the line and saw Fred push the person in front of him before filling his tray up with food. Is that humongous guy the one like you went to see in Texas? Kitty asked as Jean nodded. Fred. Yeah, he's okay. When he's not ripping lockers off the wall. Kitty's eyes widened at that before speaking up. He's the one who did that. Freaky. As they continued to talk, Kurt turned to Naruto. I heard you have Rogue as your drama partner. Naruto nodded before leaning his head on his hand. Yeah, I got to play a romantic scene with a girl who thinks we tried to kill her. She'll have to be one hell of an actress to pull it off. Can I watch the rehearsals? They should be good. They both laughed as Fred passed them, growling a little. He walked to an empty table with trays on it before pulling the chair out. When he sat down, the chair broke, having him hit the table and sent food flying to hit Duncan. Wrong move, Blob boy. He growled, walking over to Fred, who slipped on food as he tried to get up, causing the room to laugh. Don't laugh at me. Fred threw some food, hitting Duncan, causing him to fall. Duncan's friends threw food at Fred, who growled before throwing more food. Food fight. The students started throwing food as Jean used her powers to block any that came to her. Naruto quickly grabbed Kitty and turned them around as food hits Naruto's back. Thanks, Naruto. I think I'll skip dessert. She phased through Naruto's arms and through the floor as Jean walked to Fred, who's swinging a table around. Fred, calm do. Jean stepped on a piece of cake and slipped towards Fred, who swung the table down. Fred. Naruto jumped in front of Jean, and caught the table, creating cracks under his feet. Naruto quickly broke the table as Fred calmed down. Easy, big guy, Naruto said before Jean got up, and looked to him. Naruto. Can I talk to him alone? Naruto looked to her for a moment before speaking up. You sure? She nodded before he shrugged. Okay, I'll be right outside if you need me. He replied, walking away after taking off his shirt, and pressed his hand on his left wrist where a seal was. A clean shirt poofed in his hand, and he put it on as he pushed the glass doors opened. Rogue, who was watching, quickly went to her locker as Naruto walked out. She blushed seeing his six-pack before pulling his shirt down. Why, you really look out for each other, huh? Rogue said, hiding behind her locker door. Yeah we do. Naruto replied before hearing Principal Darkholm's voice. What's going on here? Naruto, and Rogue jumped before Naruto spoke up. Nothing. We were just talking, Principal Darkholm. She glared at them before crossing her arms. Well, I would advise you to get to class. We were just on our way. Naruto replies before Rogue left. Hey, remember we're rehearsing after school in the park. And bring your playbook. Rogue waved at him before he left the other way, glancing at the principal. She really needs a man or something. With Jean and Fred, it's just, when people laugh at me, I explode inside. Fred explained. Jean nodded. Yeah, but you need to learn to control your anger. Like training. Fred snorted before replying. Yeah, right. Jean smiled before looking down. I learned to use my gifts at the institutes. She explained, getting Fred to blink. Wait. Powers. You have powers too? Yes. Jean replied before seeing a chair. Making sure no one was around, she lifted it, and smashed it in a wall. Wow, you could really pound someone with that. Jean quickly shook her head before looking to him. No, Fred. That's what we learn not to do. You should come down to the institute. I know Professor would like to meet you. When you're ready, let me know. Jean walked to the hall before Fred spoke up, picking her book bag up. Wait, Jean. He stopped as Naruto opened the door for her. Yeah. Fred shook his head, leaving them to go out in the hall. He noticed something sticking out of the bag, and picked it up, showing a photo. He glared, seeing it was a picture of Naruto with his arm wrapped around Jean, both smiling. He ripped the photo in half before stomping on Naruto's picture, destroying it. Later, outside after school, Jean, now wearing a purple skirt, and a long-sleeved lavender button-up shirt, was talking to Taran. So why did you change? Taran asked as Jean smiled. I've got a date with Naruto after his drama homework with his partner. Jean replied before Fred walked in front of them, scaring them. Oh, hello, Fred. This is my friend Taran. Fred nodded at her before turning his attention to Jean. Hey Jean, can I talk to you? Over a burger? Sorry, Fred. I have stuff to do, then I'm meeting Naruto for a date. She and Taran walked away before Fred spoke up. You're lying. They stopped as Jean looked to Taran. Go on ahead, Taran. I'll catch up with you. Taran looked behind her before speaking up. You're sure? Jean nodded, and she left as Fred walked up. Listen, Fred. I like you, but I have responsibilities, and that mean I can't go with you now. Fred roughly grabbed her arm. But you're my friend. Jean struggled as she tried to pull her arm away. Friends don't hurt each other. Now let me go. Fred ignored her as he pulled her behind the school. Just let me talk to you. In private. When they got to the back of the building, they saw platforms for construction with cinder blocks on them. Let go, Fred. Jean yelled, trying to pull her arm free. Not until you agree to go out with me. Jean pulled her arm free, and rubbed it. I don't have to do anything. She tried to run, but Fred grabbed both of her arms, and she struggled. I'm warning you, Fred. She looked over, and brought several cinder blocks to hit Fred, who blocked them. Is that all you got? She started bringing more over, and a garbage bin that Fred hits back, causing the platforms to fall on them. Fred pushed the debris from them, and noticed Jean had a bruise on her forehead. Looking worried, Fred picked her up, and walked away, not noticing a small flame on the ground before a cinder block came down on it. Later, Jean awoke with a groan before seeing Fred smiling at her with candles around the room with plates at a table. She tried to move only to see a metal bar wrapped around her. Professor, help me, she thought for a moment, closing her eyes, not noticing a piece of metal floating for a second behind her. Xavier Institute. Charles, with Logan, who's in a karate gi with a black belt, brown gloves, and a black X-Men logo on the back, was watching Shadowcat and Nightcrawler run through the woods. That's it, half pint. Keep the ball away from the elf, Logan said before Charles flinched. It's Jean. She's in trouble, Logan growled before looking to Nightcrawler. You elf. Get cage. I got to ride. Later, Wolverine drove off on his motorcycle as Nightcrawler teleported away. With Naruto and Rogue. Do you like me, Kate? Naruto asked, reading from his book as Rogue looked to hers, and spoke with a French accent. Pardon moi, I do not understand. What is this? Like me? Naruto smiled before grabbing her hand. An angel is like you, Kate, and you are an angel. Rogue smiled before pulling her hand away. The girls are right. You are a charmer. Only for the pretty ones, he said as she sighed sadly. What's wrong? He asked as she looked away. Nothing. It's just I wish I could get close to someone you know. Naruto looked down for a moment before hearing Kurama in his head. Kit, try touching her. I think I have enough barriers put up so her powers won't affect you. Naruto slowly reached over, and was about to touch her, but Kurt poofed onto the table. Oh, tender moment. Sorry to drop in. Rogue glared before huffing, and crossed her arms. I swear he's like an annoying little brother. Kurt reeled back before glaring, and stuck his tongue out at her. What's up, Kurt? Kurt turned to him with a worried look. Jean's been nabbed. Naruto suddenly got up, grabbed him, and pulled him close. Easy on the expensive suit, mine friend. Wolverine's on the scent. I'm just here to collect you. Naruto lets him go and sighed. It must have been Fred. He looked to see Rogue looking away. Rogue, did you hear anything from Lance, or Todd for that matter? She looked to him, and shook her head. No, I swear I didn't hear anything. Okay. If you do, please call. He picked up a piece of paper from his pants pocket, and wrote down his number. After handing it to her, and put his hand on Kurt's shoulder. Okay, Kurt, let's go. They teleported away as Rogue looked at the number. Later in Xavier's Institute for the Gifted. Charles had a map of the area Jean's in with a small circle around the industrial block. I've been in mental contact with Jean. She has no idea where she's at. But she and the Blob are somewhere in this area. Naruto nodded before lifting his hood. Then let's move. We'll split up, and search the abandoned buildings. Nightcrawler and Shadowcat got in the X-van, Cyclops went in his car, and Naruto in his. A black, 69 Camaro SS with white racing stripes on the hood. Please be alright, Jean. He though driving down to the area Jean's in. Wolverine's found her. Sending coordinates now. Naruto looked to the computer before making a right. Getting to the place, Naruto saw Fred being sent out of the roof of an ironworks factory. Before noticing Cyclops and Wolverine knocked out in front of the building. Rogue. He got out, and saw Rogue, and Jean walk out. Naruto. She ran into him, and tackled him in a hug. It's okay, Jean. Naruto said, rubbing her back before looking to Rogue. You are like an angel, Ka. Ouch. Naruto stopped as Jean kicked him in the knee. What the hell was that for? He asked as she glared at him, and crossed her arms. I just got free from being kidnapped, and you're hitting on her now. Rogue sighed before shaking her head. My name's not Kate. And I'm no angel. She ran away as Jean tried to stop her, only to grab her head, and scream. Jean. Naruto ran to her only for him, and everyone else to get thrown back by a force. Jean, are you alright? Naruto asked, seeing the ground on fire a little, and an unconscious Jean in the middle. Crap, okay, get the X-van ready, there's a gurney in it. Naruto said before kicking dirt on the fire to make a path to Jean. Suddenly, all the junk around the building started floating up. Professor. Something's wrong with Jean. She's unconscious, and I think fire came from her. Naruto thought before Kurama spoke up. Kit. It's time. I am ready to do it. I was hoping for more time to double check everything. But it's now or never. Later. Medical room Naruto, Kurama, and Kitty. Naruto puts Jean on a bed as Kurama pushed another one beside her. Like, why do you only need me? Kitty asked as Kurama jumped up beside Jean. If my tests are correct, then we'll need only a woman in here. He said, having Naruto put his hands on Jean's head. Now concentrate like you do when you go inside the seal. Naruto did that, and red chakra surrounded them and he started to sweat. Inside Jean's mind, Naruto and Kurama looked around what looked like the X-mansion. She is down the hall. They walked to the end of the hall and opened the door. Jean, Naruto asked, seeing Jean only with darker red hair, chained to a chair. Jean smiled before shaking her head. No, sweetie. I'm her other half, more or less. Just think of it like you and Fuzzball over there. Now could you be a dear and help me out of these chains? Kurama walked in front of him and stared at her. On one condition. I could feel your malice. And only ask that when you're free. No destroying things and people. Jean looked down in thought for a moment before looking back to him. Outside with Kitty. Kitty was looking worried before being pushed back by a force into the wall. When she got up, she saw steam in the room as a figure got up. Jean, she asked as the person looked like Jean only with darker hair. No. But you're close. Kitty blinked as she got up from the bed. Why? You not wearing clothes? She said as the person's hair covered their breasts, and the steam kept everything from the waist down covered. Okay, Phoenix. The now named Phoenix looked to Naruto, who brought a robe out from his jacket. Let's get you introduced to Every. He stopped as Phoenix jumped on him, and wrapped her arms and legs around him, almost making him fall to the floor. I have a better plan, lover. She said, nibbling his ear, causing him to sigh. As much I would like that. I'm with Jean, and we have better things to do now. Later. Naruto and a now dressed Phoenix in a black tank top and low-riding jeans were sitting on a couch with everyone surrounding them. I don't like this, Naruto. She's dangerous. Charles said as Phoenix twitched. It's alright, Charles. She would have taken over Jean if we didn't do it. Naruto puts a hand on her shoulder before continuing. Rachel here made a promise that she wouldn't do anything bad. And she only wanted out. To be her own person. I know from experience with Kurama. Charles sighed as he laced his fingers together. Alright. But she's your responsibility from now on. Is that understood? Naruto nodded before getting up with Rachel jumping on his back, and they left.